Why? It would suck to wake up as a Tau. The dark truth behind the greater good. Imagine waking up one cold dawn in a sleek, sterile dormitory, the white metal walls humming softly with hidden circuitry. You blink your eyes open, and your first thought is not coffee, not a cigarette, not the soft, crumpled sheets of your bed. No, your first thought is the greater good. Because congratulations, you're no longer you, you're a Tau. Maybe you thought being Tau would be pretty sweet. Advanced tech. Clean architecture. No praying to a corpse on a throne, no chaos gods trying to crawl into your skull, just efficient, well-lit cities and a purpose bigger than yourself. Sounds great, right? Let's talk about why it might not be quite as dreamy as you imagined. See, to be born a Tau means being born into a galaxy that wants to kill you in roughly 1,000 different ways. And it means being born into a society that, while seemingly noble and unified, has its own secrets lurking just beneath the shining ceramic white surface. So, sit tight, keep your hooves in line, and let's unravel what it really means to be a Tau. Because while it's all fine to shout, "For the greater good!" Because before you woke up in that dormitory, before pulse rifles, before the gleaming ships, the Tau were, well, let's say a little less sophisticated. Once upon a time, roughly 6,000 years ago, by Imperial reckoning, the galaxy was a raging mess, which, to be fair, it still is. But back then, amidst all the warp storms and collapsing civilizations, an Imperial probe was launched into the Eastern Fringe. Its mission, chart new territories, because the Imperium loves stamping its seal on absolutely everything. That probe found something unusual. A small, blue-skinned race living on a world simply named Tau. The Tau people were, well, primitive, no spaceships, no plasma rifles, no fancy battlesuits. They were split into small tribes armed with spears, bows, and rudimentary metallurgy. But the probe noted something fascinating. The Tau seemed to evolve quickly, showing astonishing adaptability. They built settlements fast, developed tools with impressive creativity, and organized into tight social units. Even then, hints of what would become the greater good flickered in how they worked together. So the Imperium, in its infinite wisdom, marked the Tau homeworld for future annexation, because that's what the Imperium does, fast forward about 6,000 years. The probe's data got stuck in bureaucratic filing cabinets, lost under endless parchment scrolls, misplaced by administratum scribes who probably died at their desks. By the time a full Imperial Crusade fleet finally set course for the Tau homeworld, the galaxy had shifted in 1,000 different ways. But for the Tau, it was only the blink of an eye, except the Tau weren't quite so primitive anymore. You see, something happened in the interim. And this is where your story as a Tau begins to get interesting. Roughly 3,000 years before the present day, the Tau were locked in a brutal civil war. Tribes were divided by stark differences in how they lived and fought. Some were earthbound farmers and builders, crafting tools and forging metals. Others were warriors who roamed the plains, practicing deadly tactics. Still others had begun to explore the skies, gliding on primitive flying machines. And there were those who preferred the art of speech and diplomacy, smoothing conflicts between tribes. Sound familiar? That's because these early cultural divides eventually solidified into the modern castes: earth, fire, air, and water. But back then, it was just blood and dust and tribal grudges. And then, the Ethereals appeared. No one really knows where the Ethereals came from. Even you, as a Tau, don't know the truth. The official story goes like this: as two major tribes prepared for a climactic final battle, a small group of Tau emerged from the desert sands. They carried themselves with absolute calm and authority, and when they spoke, the warring tribes simply stopped fighting. The Ethereals preached a philosophy of unity, a concept greater than personal glory, greater than tribal loyalty. They called it the Tauva, the greater good. And the strangest part? The tribes listened. Spears were lowered, bows unstrung. Leaders who had spent decades slaughtering each other suddenly embraced as brothers. It was as though a soothing balm had been poured over a searing wound. Of course, as a modern Tau, you've been taught this story since you were old enough to toddle around on your hoofed little feet. It's recited in classrooms, broadcast on propaganda hollows, whispered in reverent tones in council chambers. The Ethereals were saviors, chosen by destiny to unify the Tau race. But there are rumors. See, some whisper that the Ethereals might not be entirely what they seem, that they wield some strange biological influence, a pheromone-based form of mind control perhaps. There are soldiers who claim that when an Ethereal is nearby, it's impossible to disobey. Their mere presence brings calm and obedience. But that's heresy, comrade. And as a Tau, you know very well that heresy is unhealthy for your continued existence. Once the Ethereals took control, the Tau race rocketed into progress at a rate that would give a tech priest an aneurysm. Metallurgy advanced, architecture soared, the separate castes formalized, each one taking a specialized role in society. And the Ethereals sat at the top of it all, guiding every decision. Now, let's talk about how the Imperium tried to stick its nose back into Tau affairs. Roughly 2,000 standard years ago, the same Imperial fleet that had intended to annex the Tau finally arrived. By then, the Tau had cities, weapons, and a unified society. But let's be honest, they were still decades, maybe centuries, away from real spaceflight or interstellar communication. An Imperial crusade would have crushed them in days, except fate intervened. Warp storms erupted all across the eastern fringe, swallowing Imperial ships in howling tides of unreality. The entire sector was cut off by raging currents of warp energy. The fleet had no choice but to withdraw, battered and cursed by the swirling madness. So the Tau were left alone. And in that cosmic window of solitude, they exploded into technological brilliance. In mere centuries, they invented plasma weapons, gravitic technology, sophisticated drone AI, and sleek starships. To the Imperium, it looked like they went from flint axes to anti-grav tanks almost overnight. It's one of the Tau's great advantages, and one of their great curses. Because sure, your people are brilliant innovators, but the galaxy hates upstarts. And the older races, the Imperium, the Eldar, the Necrons, see your rapid ascent as a threat. And here you are now, a Tau. Living under a sky filled with orbital stations, drone networks, and the watchful eyes of the Ethereals. You're part of a civilization that preaches unity, selflessness, and progress. But you also live under a system where questions can be dangerous. Individuality is suspect, and entire septs can vanish if they show a little too much independence. So yeah, waking up as a Tau? Not quite as perfect as the recruitment hollows would have you believe, and that's just your origin story. Wait until we talk about the castes, because where you're born pretty much dictates who you are, what you'll do until you die, and how many times you'll hear the words greater good before you finally keel over. But we'll get there. For now, remember, once upon a time, your people were tribespeople in animal hides, chucking spears at each other, and then a mysterious new class of leaders emerged from the sands, preaching unity and technological wonder. And in the blink of a cosmic eye, you became one of the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy. Lucky you. So, you're a Tau. Blue skin, digitigrade legs, neat little hooves tapping across shining metal floors. And you've learned by now that your people went from stone spears to starships in record time, all thanks to the sudden arrival of the Ethereals and a philosophy called the greater good. But here's the thing about being a Tau. Your entire existence is already pretty much decided the moment you squeal your first breath into the world. Because from the day you're born, you belong to a caste. You might think that sounds a bit rigid, and you'd be right. But that's how your entire society works. It's orderly, predictable, efficient, and suffocating. Let's talk about those castes, because where you land determines everything. Your job, your friends, your place in society, and whether you're the one shooting the pulse rifle or the one building it. There are 4 primary castes in Tau society. Well, 5 if we're being honest. But the Ethereals tend not to count themselves the same way, because they're special. We'll get to that later. For now, let's talk about the 4 castes that make up everyday life for almost every Tau. Let's start with the one that probably first comes to mind, the Fire caste. If you're born into the Fire caste, congratulations, you're a warrior, a Shaz. Your entire childhood revolves around discipline, marksmanship, tactics, and enough physical training to grind your bones into dust. You'll start basic drills so young that your pulse carbine will feel like an extension of your own arm by the time you're 10 cycles old. You are the hammer of the Tau Empire, the spearhead, the ones who fight and die on distant worlds in the name of the greater good. Your heroes wear crisis battlesuits, towering armored exoskeletons bristling with advanced weaponry. Your life will be measured in glorious victories, brilliant tactical retreats, and, more often than not, the soul-scorching terror of close combat. Because here's a dirty secret, the Fire caste absolutely hates close combat. The very idea of hacking away at an enemy with a knife or a sword makes most Shahs queasy. You're trained to fight from range, to use precision and technology. And when someone like a howling corn berserker barrels into your lines swinging a chain axe, well, let's just say your pulse rifle doesn't help much when the enemy is already close enough to smell your sweat. So, yeah. Firecast life is full of heroic propaganda vids and recruiting hollows showing shining warriors standing tall beneath banners. But the reality? Long deployments on harsh worlds, endless training drills, a strict hierarchy, and the constant risk of dying in a spectacularly messy fashion. Let's say instead, you're born into the Earth caste. The Earth caste, known as the Theo, are the builders, the engineers, the scientists. They design the ships, they craft the weapons, they handle agriculture, architecture, and every piece of infrastructure that keeps Tau society running. If you're a Theo, you're probably brilliant, meticulous, patient, and sometimes driven half mad by ethereal demands for improvements that defy the laws of physics. Your life is largely safe, unless you're assigned to an outpost under siege or a research lab doing weapons testing a little too close to the front lines. You'll work long hours in clean, sterile labs surrounded by drones and data slates. You might be the one who designs the next generation of railgun accelerators or develops a new battlesuit variant. But don't imagine a life of cushy luxury. You're a cog in the machine. Your superiors will demand results, and the Ethereals are never, ever satisfied. Innovation is good, so long as it doesn't challenge the social order. Creativity is prized, so long as it stays within the bounds of the greater good. Cross those boundaries, and your brilliant mind might vanish into a quiet re-education center, never to be seen again. Now, maybe your life would be different in the air caste. The air caste, or the core, are the pilots, the ship crew, the navigators who travel the stars. You're tall and slender, even compared to other Tau. Your bodies have adapted to life in low gravity, long limbs, delicate bone structure, almost fragile in appearance, but able to endure crushing acceleration in a starship's command chair. As a core, you spend more of your life in vacuum than in atmosphere. You sleep in small bunks aboard starships that drift through the void for months or years at a time. You might pilot sleek mantas through planetary skies or helm massive warships during planetary bombardments. You're revered for your skills and pitied for your isolation. Because the air caste lives apart from other Tau, social gatherings are rare, friendships are strained by time and distance. Your sense of community becomes bound to your crew and your ship. And when you return planetside, the gravity feels heavy, the air thick, the ground somehow alien beneath your hooves. Worst of all, you're expendable. A core is valued, yes, but when a warship goes down under enemy fire, few back home will ever hear your name. Then there's the water caste, the poor, diplomats, traders, bureaucrats, spies. The water caste is the smooth voice of the empire, the hand extended in friendship. They're the ones who negotiate alliances, manage planetary administrations, and, if necessary, slip a vibro blade between someone's ribs while smiling sweetly. Poor are charismatic, quick-witted, socially deft. They can calm an angry orc war boss for a few minutes anyway, or convince a planetary governor to side with the greater good. They're the face of the Tau when dealing with aliens, be it humans, Kroot, Vespid, or more exotic Xenos. But the price of all that charisma is exhaustion. The water caste operates under constant pressure. One slip of the tongue, one poorly chosen word, can spark a diplomatic incident or get entire sept worlds embroiled in new conflicts, and the Ethereals expect perfect loyalty. Poor who show too much personal ambition or who forget the greater cause tend to vanish into the shadows. So that's your society. Fire, earth, air, water, each with a place, each with a function, a perfect machine. Because over it all, above every caste, above every sept, stand the Ethereals. You've heard about them your entire life. Ethereals are not just leaders, they're icons, holy figures, visionaries. The ones who saved the Tau from self-destruction and who now steer the entire race toward the greater good. They're easy to recognize. Tall, elegant, wearing flowing robes, they move with quiet confidence. Their skin seems a lighter shade than other Tau. Their eyes have a strange intensity, as if they see more than the physical world. When they speak, entire regiments fall silent. When they gesture, warriors move without hesitation. To the Tau, the Ethereals are infallible. Because the Ethereals, they're complicated. On the surface, they're everything the propaganda proclaims. Wise, selfless, utterly dedicated to the greater good. They arbitrate disputes between castes. They set the course for military campaigns. They decide which worlds to colonize, which battles to fight, which alliances to forge. But there's a darker undercurrent running beneath that serene facade. There are stories, whispers. Even as a loyal Tau, you've heard them late at night, when your squadmates drop their voices to a hush. The rumors say that the Ethereals possess some kind of biological power, a pheromone field that suppresses fear, calms dissent, and inspires loyalty. No one can prove it, of course. Anyone who digs too deeply tends to, disappear. And why wouldn't they have such abilities? Think about it. How else could a tiny group of individuals suddenly stop a raging civil war, unify an entire species, and command absolute loyalty from warriors and scientists alike? How else could they hold together an empire built on rigid castes and absolute conformity? Even if the rumors are true, most Tau accept it. After all, the Ethereals brought unity, prosperity, safety. Under their guidance, the Tau have thrived while countless other races drown in chaos and despair. So you try not to think about it too hard. You focus on your duties, you repeat the mantras. You believe. Because questioning the Ethereals doesn't end well. Let's talk about the greater good itself. It sounds noble, doesn't it? The idea that everyone works not for themselves, but for the collective prosperity of all. That personal sacrifice builds a better future for the species. That every life has value, as long as it serves the greater cause. And in many ways, it's genuine. The Tau don't tolerate the horrors of the warp cults. They don't worship dark gods. They don't live under an imperium that grinds entire worlds to dust for a single administrative error. If you're a Tau, you have clean cities, modern technology, medical care, a clear purpose, a sense of belonging. Compared to the Imperium, it's practically a utopia, but the greater good comes at a price. Individualism is dangerous. Questioning orders is heretical. Ambition, outside the goals of the Ethereals, is forbidden. Art is encouraged, but only when it serves propaganda. Science is advanced, but only in ways that do not threaten the caste structure. Dissenters don't get trials. They get quietly removed from society. Or simply vanish, leaving their family to recite hollow words about how they serve the greater good in new ways. And there's something else. Despite preaching inclusivity, the Tau believe in their own superiority. The greater good is for everyone, but Tau always lead. The Kroot, Vespid, Gay-Vesa, human auxiliaries, Nakasa, and other species are partners, but they're partners under Tau rule. They're given opportunities so long as they obey. Waking up as a Tau means you're part of a society that seems bright and progressive on the outside, but is rigid and controlled beneath the surface. Your life is ordered, safe, predictable, but there's a constant weight pressing down on your shoulders, the silent demand to conform, to never question, to sacrifice your wants for the invisible greater cause. Because the Ethereals are always watching, and the greater good demands everything. So here you are, a Tau citizen drifting through your daily life under sterile lights and the eternal watch of the Ethereals. Maybe you've reconciled yourself to the castes. Maybe you've convinced yourself the greater good is truly worth it. But there's one thing you can't deny. No matter how cynical you become, being Tau means living surrounded by technology that would make most other races weep. Let's talk about that tech. Because from the outside, the Tau Empire looks like a shining beacon of scientific progress in a galaxy drowning in religious dogma and endless war. And in many ways, it genuinely is. Imagine waking up each morning to walls that shift color depending on ambient light. Your quarters have climate control that keeps humidity and temperature at a perfect balance for your physiology. Food arrives hot and fresh from automated systems. Your data slate flickers to life with a swipe of your finger, streaming the latest news from a dozen sept worlds. Compared to the Imperium, the Tau live in an age of miracles. Humans in the Imperium pray to machine spirits and offer incense to battered consoles older than their entire planetary history. You, as a Tau, would consider it absurd that anyone needs to chant litanies just to boot up a targeting array. And yet, there's a catch. Because while the Tau possess staggering technology, there are boundaries you're not allowed to cross. Let's start with weaponry. One of the first things people envy about the Tau is their firepower. And rightly so. If you're a fire warrior, your pulse rifle spits hyper-accelerated plasma rounds that can punch clean through ceramite power armor. It's lightweight, reliable, and deadly at ranges where a lasgun might as well be shooting flashlight beams. The railgun is another marvel. The Earth-caste perfected electromagnetic acceleration to the point where a single slug can vaporize a main battle tank. You've seen the vids. One clean blue-white streak across the sky, and then nothing left of the target but a smoking crater. Then there are the battlesuits. The battlesuits. If you're a Firecast warrior, strapping into an XV8 crisis suit is like stepping into godhood. Twin-linked plasma rifles, missile pods, fusion blasters, shield generators humming around your armored frame. You become a walking arsenal capable of delivering pinpoint devastation and then leaping away on jet thrusters before the enemy can retaliate. But don't get too carried away, because for all their power, battlesuits come with a cost. Inside that armored shell, you're half blind to the world, relying on sensors and target locks. The suit becomes your second skin, but it's also your prison. And if something goes wrong, like, say, a Tyrannid warrior punching clean through your torso, the suit becomes your coffin. Still, there's no denying the sense of pride that comes from marching into battle clad in white alloy, ready to deliver the greater good from high above. Of course, the Tau's technological genius doesn't end with weapons. They've mastered gravitic technology, allowing for sleek hover tanks like the Hammerhead to skim above the battlefield, avoiding mines and rough terrain that would bog down any Leman Russ. Their drone technology is another leap ahead of other races. Tau drones hover on anti-grave engines equipped with sensors, shield projectors, or even lethal weaponry. They're cheap, expendable, and controlled via sophisticated AI protocols. On the battlefield, they can extend a Fire Warrior squad's sensor range, intercept incoming fire, or deliver precise shots from behind cover. Here's where it gets interesting though. Those drones are as advanced as the Tau are allowed to make them. Because the Ethereals have set strict limits on artificial intelligence. No truly independent machine minds, no AIs capable of self-determination. The Tau learned that lesson the hard way during an incident known only as the Montica Protocol breach. Details are scarce, classified to the highest security levels, but whispers tell of AI constructs that rebelled, threatened entire cities, and forced the Ethereals to purge entire research programs. So while your drones are brilliant, they're leashed. They operate on strict command hierarchies. They're never allowed to question orders or develop unique personalities. To the Ethereals, machines must always serve Tau, never the other way around. But even with those restrictions, your society hums with innovation. Medical technology can repair horrific battlefield injuries. Cybernetic limbs are commonplace. Hollow emitters produce crisp, three-dimensional projections. Data storage and analysis runs at speeds the Imperium scribes could only dream of. And yet, there's a quiet tension beneath it all. It's the tool that elevated your species, but it's also a potential threat to your rigid social order. Earth-caste scientists live under constant scrutiny. The Ethereals encourage innovation, but only within strict parameters. New ideas are welcomed until they start challenging the caste structure or the primacy of the greater good. Once you cross that line, your lab is sealed off, your research confiscated, and you might find yourself relocated to a special assignment on a remote asteroid, never to be heard from again. So yes, as a Tau, you live in a world of wonders. Your devices are sleek, efficient, and almost magical compared to the rusting garbage that passes for technology in the Imperium. But your brilliance is carefully fenced in, your creativity is celebrated, so long as you remember who's in charge. And nowhere is that more true than in the Tau's military. Because now we come to the reality of military life in the Tau Empire. Let's say you're a fire warrior. Your entire existence revolves around two concepts, Montka and Kauyon. Montka, the killing blow. Swift, decisive strikes designed to cripple the enemy before they can respond. You strike like a spear tip, fast and lethal. Tau commanders love Montka because it plays to their strengths, precision, ranged firepower, and devastating technology. Then there's Kauyon, the patient hunter. The art of drawing the enemy into a trap, letting them advance, overextend, and then striking where they're weakest. Kauyon requires discipline, calm nerves, and an almost supernatural patience. You must be willing to hold your fire even as the enemy bears down on you. And when the time comes, you strike with overwhelming force. These twin doctrines are drilled into your skull from day one. Every fire warrior can recite their principles in their sleep. Montka for aggression, Kauyon for cunning. Both exist to minimize Tau casualties. Because, let's face it, there aren't that many of you compared to the screaming masses of the Imperium. Tau commanders excel at fluid warfare, rapid redeployment, long-range strikes, battlesuits leaping in, firing devastating volleys, then vanishing behind cover. Hammerhead tanks floating across battlefields to deliver precision shots, barrages of railgun fire collapsing enemy armor columns in seconds. But let's be honest, there's a reason Tau doctrine avoids close combat like the plague. Tau physiology simply isn't built for hand-to-hand brutality. You're agile, yes, fast, sure, but you lack the raw muscle mass of a space marine. You don't have orc resilience or tyrannid ferocity. Once the enemy closes the distance, you're in deep trouble. Even fire-caste warriors trained from birth often struggle in melee. Their suits aren't optimized for grappling or blade work. Their weapons are designed to keep threats at range. And while there are exceptions like the legendary commander Farsight and his mastery of the Dawnblade, They are rare, so Tau tactics focus on one absolute truth: never, ever let the enemy get close. And that's not just propaganda. You've seen the combat vids. Entire Fire Warrior squads shredded in seconds because a Chaos Raptor squad dropped out of the sky right on top of them. Kroot auxiliaries often serve as a living buffer, engaging enemies in brutal close combat so the Tau can fall back and keep firing. And that brings us to your allies. Tau rarely fight alone. Part of the greater good's philosophy is bringing other species under the Empire's banner. Kroot warriors are invaluable for their close combat prowess. They fight with savage ferocity, hurling themselves into melee so your fire warriors can stay at a safe distance. Vespid bring mobility and deadly short-range weaponry. Even gave us humans who defected from the Imperium fill support roles, handling tasks the Tau might consider distasteful. But working alongside aliens comes with complications. They present themselves as liberators, bringing peace and prosperity to lesser races. But the reality is more complex. The Kroot, for instance, are fiercely independent. They fight for the Tau, but only so long as the Empire pays them and lets them pursue their own genetic evolution through consuming fallen enemies. The Ethereals tolerate this, but keep a close eye on how much independence the Kroot demand. Humans serving the Tau. To the Imperium, they're traitors deserving only death. To the Tau, they're a useful propaganda tool, a way to show that even humans can see the logic of the greater good. But the truth is, Gevessa occupy a precarious place in society, never truly trusted, never fully equal, useful but expendable. So as a fire warrior, you're constantly surrounded by species whose loyalty is conditional at best. You stand on battlefields alongside creatures who might be your allies today and your problem tomorrow. Your life as a Tau soldier isn't endless bloodshed like in the Imperium. Your leaders value your life. Casualties are to be minimized. Every operation is planned with meticulous precision. You're equipped with advanced sensors, drones, and comms networks that give you a level of battlefield awareness other armies can only dream of. But the price is absolute discipline. There's no room for improvisation unless you're a high-ranking commander. Orders are sacred, protocol is unbreakable. The Ethereals demand unity, and the price for failing that unity can be exile or death. And even with all your high-tech marvels, the galaxy is a monstrous place. Because out there, waiting for you, are enemies who simply don't care how advanced your gear is. Orcs who shrug off pulse fire like mosquito bites. Necron legions that rise back up after you've blasted them to atoms. Tyranids who flood battlefields in bioengineered waves, devouring everything in their path. And the Imperium, oh, the Imperium, with its endless human tides, space marines clad in ceramite, and psychers who can boil your mind with a thought. You're fast, you're precise. But sometimes, all the pulse rifles and railguns in the world aren't enough. So that's life in the Tau military. Clean, efficient, deadly from range, but perpetually teetering on the edge of annihilation. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, even the greater good can't save you from everything. So you've learned what it means to be Tau. You've accepted the caste you're born into. You've memorized every tenet of Monka and Kaoyon. You've cleaned your pulse rifle until it gleams like polished ivory under the barracks lights. You've recited the mantras of the greater good so many times you hear them echo in your skull even as you sleep. But if you think your life as a Tau revolves purely around your own kind, think again. Because one of the biggest pieces of the greater good is the idea that it's not just for Tau, it's for everyone. At least, that's how the propaganda goes. Let's talk about your so-called allies. Because as a Tau, you're part of an empire that doesn't merely conquer worlds, it absorbs them, converts them, integrates them into a grand vision where all races supposedly work together for the collective benefit. Sounds noble, right? Unity, cooperation, mutual respect. The reality, as usual, is a little more complicated. The Tau call it the third sphere of expansion. Each wave of colonization sends sleek ships out into the stars, offering alien races a simple choice: join the greater good or face annihilation. And sure, sometimes it's phrased more diplomatically. The water caste might arrive first, smiling and offering gifts of technology, trade agreements, and shiny grav tanks. They'll speak soft words about equality and shared destiny. They'll show holovids of thriving Tau cities where diverse aliens walk the streets in peace. But make no mistake, the Tau expect obedience. The greater good is not a democracy, it's a pyramid, and the Tau sit firmly at the top. Let's start with the Kroot. If you've served in the fire caste, you've definitely fought alongside Kroot. They're tall, lanky, with mottled greenish skin and a collection of spiky quills along the back of their heads. Their eyes are predatory, their movements quick and bird-like. They're not just warriors, they're hunters. They move through forests like shadows, tracking enemies by scent, sight, and intuition. Kroot fight in ways Tau find both impressive and unsettling. They revel in close combat. They rush forward with blades and talons, snarling, leaping, slashing. And then there's their most controversial trait. The Kroot evolve by consuming the flesh of fallen enemies. They literally ingest genetic material to enhance themselves. Eat enough orcs, and a Kroot warrior might get stronger and bulkier, consume humans, and they become more adaptable. The Ethereals tolerate this barely. It's a useful trait in war, but you, as a Tau, probably find it deeply disturbing. After all, you've been raised in a society where cannibalism is, well, more than a little frowned upon. Still, the Kroot are invaluable allies. They willingly fight battles the Tau want to avoid. Dense jungles, close quarters, brutal melees where pulse rifles are useless. They accept payment in technology, weapons, and trade goods. They're fiercely loyal so long as the deals keep coming. But don't mistake that loyalty for unconditional devotion. The Kroot serve the greater good, yes, but the Kroot first and foremost serve the Kroot. Then there's the Vespid. Picture an insect. Now make it 7 feet tall. Give it chitinous wings, multifaceted eyes that glow like gems, and a pair of clawed hands. That's a Vespid. They come from gas giant worlds, flitting through dense atmospheres that would kill most other races. Their voices buzz in frequencies no Tau can hear unaided, so Tau scientists develop translator helms that allow communication. Vespid are lightning-fast shock troops. Their neutron blasters shred power armor and light vehicles. On the battlefield, they swoop and dive, striking from angles enemies don't expect. But there's a catch. Some suspect that the Vespid helms do more than just translate. Whispers suggest those devices might also subtly program Vespid loyalty to the Ethereals. No one can prove it, of course. The Ethereals insist the Vespid are enthusiastic partners in the greater good, but it's hard to ignore that Vespid society remains almost entirely mysterious, even to their supposed allies. And when those helms malfunction, let's just say entire squads have vanished in sudden communication errors, then you've got the Nakasa. You may have never seen a Nakasa in person. They're reclusive, prone to isolation. Imagine a furry, otter-like creature, small and plump, wrapped in floating grav chairs. The Nakasa possess potent psychic powers, mostly telekinesis. They're explorers, wanderers, drifting through space on family-led vessels called dhows. The Tau tolerate the Nakasa's psychic gifts because they're incredibly useful for scouting distant regions. The Nakasa steer small ships without engines, simply willing them forward through space. To the Tau, the warp is a mysterious, terrifying dimension. The Imperium's psychers are tightly controlled. The Tau have no native psychic talent, and they fear what they don't understand. So while the Nakasa are officially allies, they're kept at arm's length, allowed to serve the Empire, but carefully monitored, lest their powers invite something darker. Let's not forget the Demiurge, short, stocky, miners and engineers, think dwarves, but in space. The Demiurge run vast mining fleets, extracting resources from asteroid belts and barren worlds. They're technological savants, with skills even the Earth caste respects. The Demiurge aren't officially subjects of the Empire, but they've established trade agreements, sharing rare ores and materials in exchange for Tau technology. To the Tau, the Demiurge are valued partners. But they're also outsiders. Independent. No loyalty to the greater good beyond practical profit. And while they're friendly enough, they keep secrets. No one knows the full extent of their fleets or what they're truly capable of. Then, there are the humans. The Geveza. Imagine being human in the Tau Empire. You fled the Imperium seeking freedom from oppressive dogma and tyranny. Maybe your planet was abandoned by the Imperium. Maybe you grew tired of worshipping a corpse god who never answered your prayers. So you threw your lot in with the Tau. At first, the Tau welcomed you. They offered technology, food, security. Your life improved overnight. No more tithes to the Adeptus Terra. No more random planetary purges. Your children grew up in safe schools. Your cities glowed with clean power grids and efficient infrastructure. But beneath the surface, the Tau don't fully trust you. Humans in the Tau Empire are auxiliaries. Useful, sometimes even respected, but never fully equal. You'll serve in separate regiments, you'll live in separate districts, you'll be watched, your loyalty will be constantly tested. The Ethereals fear human ambition, fear the spark of rebellion that smolders in so many human hearts. So yes, as a Geveza, you enjoy freedoms your cousins in the Imperium can't even imagine, but you're also reminded every day that you're not truly one of them. That's the core of Tau alliances. They talk of unity, of mutual benefit, of the greater good, and many aliens genuinely do find a better life under Tau rule than under the heel of the Imperium or the horrors of chaos. But it's unity on Tau terms. The Ethereals decide how much freedom each race gets. They decide which cultures can survive and which must be guided or replaced. It's an empire no matter how politely they frame it. And the truth is, even the Tau themselves live under a philosophy that's less freedom and more benevolent control. Let's talk about religion. As a Tau, you're lucky in one sense. Your people don't worship chaos gods. You've never had a daemon whisper in your dreams. You don't pray to a distant, rotting emperor who sits silent on a golden throne. The Tau have no chapels filled with burning incense. No endless processions of flagellants chanting hymns. Instead, you have the greater good. To outsiders, it looks almost like a secular society. The Tau profess reason, science, and progress. The greater good is presented as a practical philosophy, not a religion. You don't see Ethereals in priestly robes calling down divine fury. You see them guiding society with wisdom and logic. But scratch the surface, and you'll find that the greater good is a religion, just not one with gods and miracles. It's an ideology demanding absolute faith. It defines right and wrong. It dictates who may live and who must be purged for the safety of the many. It shapes art, literature, science, and personal relationships. The greater good is the invisible glue binding Tau society together. You might not worship a deity, but you absolutely worship the idea that your life has meaning only in service to the collective. The Ethereals are the high priests of this creed. Their words carry spiritual weight. They're revered, almost divine, by the common Tau. Children recite their teachings in schools. Citizens carry data slates with ethereal speeches loaded for inspiration. Every major public event begins and ends with pledges to the greater good. But there's a problem. Because like any religious doctrine, the greater good has dark corners. It demands total conformity. The individual must bow to the needs of the many, and that means individuality is dangerous. Questioning the official narrative is dangerous. Dissent is dangerous. You've heard the rumors of Tau who started asking the wrong questions, who wanted more freedom, who whispered doubts about the Ethereal's true intentions. They vanish quietly. Their families are relocated, official records scrubbed, and no one talks about them again. The greater good promises peace and prosperity, and for most Tau, it delivers. But only if you stay in line. Only if you accept that your life is not yours but belongs to the Empire. So yes, you're spared the horrors of chaos corruption. You'll never face a demonic incursion inside your own mind, but you'll live under constant surveillance. Under the weight of an ideology that demands obedience, sacrifice, and absolute loyalty. And that's the great irony of being Tau. You're one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. You possess technology that makes other empires look primitive. You avoid superstition, shun blind religious fervor, and yet you live inside a society as tightly controlled as any priesthood or cult. You serve the greater good. Or you cease to exist. So there you are. Wrapped in sleek white armor, or sterile lab robes, or a flight suit woven for the void. Surrounded by technology, order, purpose. Bound to the greater good like a star to its gravity well. You've learned that your society runs on a tightrope strung between brilliant progress and suffocating control. You've seen how the Empire deals with aliens, welcoming them in with open arms, so long as they understand who's in charge. You've learned that the greater good is both salvation and leash. But let's talk about the part of your life that makes your blue skin go cold in the dark of night. Let's talk about the enemies waiting to crush your empire. Because if there's one thing the galaxy excels at, it's producing creatures and empires hell-bent on your annihilation. And trust me, they hate you. They hate your shining cities, your drones, your unity. They hate the very notion of the greater good. And if they had their way, you'd be nothing but ashes drifting across forgotten stars. First, there's the Imperium of Man. To a Tau citizen, the Imperium seems like an impossible contradiction. An empire of billions of souls spread across millions of worlds, yet unified by nothing but blind faith in a dying emperor. You've seen the propaganda vids. Monstrous Gothic ships, cities choked in smog, soldiers wrapped in crude flak armor, marching beneath banners daubed with skulls and burning candles. But don't mistake their superstition for weakness. Because the Imperium might be backwards, but it's stubborn, ruthless, capable of hurling endless human waves at you until your pulse rifles run dry. To them, the Tau are heresy given flesh, xenos filth, a corruption that must be scoured from existence. The ecclesiarchy calls you blasphemers. The Inquisition considers your entire species a threat to the sanctity of mankind. Your offers of peace, trade, and coexistence mean nothing to them. In their eyes, your technology is witchcraft, your philosophy is heresy. Fighting the Imperium means facing guardsmen in vast numbers, dug into trenches behind walls of armor and artillery. It means facing space marines, genetically engineered warriors encased in power armor, each one capable of slaughtering an entire fire warrior squad in close combat. It means dealing with the Adeptus Mechanicus, whose hatred for your technology burns with holy fury. They'd rather die than see your blasphemous grav tanks defy the machine god's will. And worst of all, it means facing an enemy that simply won't stop coming. Because the Imperium can lose 1 million soldiers and still call it a minor setback. You don't have those numbers. Then there are the orcs. The orcs. How do you explain to someone what it's like to fight creatures who genuinely enjoy war, who treat battle as the universe's biggest joke? Imagine this. You're hunkered behind cover, pulse rifle humming, carefully calculating firing lanes. You're coordinating drone strikes, adjusting formations, everything precise, disciplined. And then an orc horde crashes through your lines like a green tidal wave. They don't care about your formations. They don't care about your strategy. They're laughing, roaring, firing crude guns the size of small animals. And when they get close, they start swinging chainswords, axes, and giant metal claws. Worse still, orc technology functions because they believe it works. You can't rationalize that. Earth-caste engineers have entire research divisions dedicated to figuring out how orcs' scrap metal contraptions defy physics. The answer? They just do. And once orcs latch onto you as a worthy fight, they'll keep coming, forever. Then there's the Necrons. Cold, ancient, silent. Necrons don't scream in battle. They don't boast. They don't bleed. They simply advance, methodically, unstoppable. Weapons glowing green with energies older than your entire species. Your pulse rifles barely scratch their living metal bodies. You destroy a squad and then watch in horror as the shattered robots rise again, rebuilding themselves molecule by molecule by molecule. The Tau have tried diplomacy. The Necrons don't even answer. They see you as insects to be exterminated. Your civilization is a brief flicker against the black gulf of time. Against Necrons, your tech feels inadequate. Your drones falter. Your railguns can barely keep up with monoliths that hover through city streets, disintegrating buildings with one sweep of their Gauss cannons. And the worst part, the Necrons were here before your son was born. To them, you're an infant civilization, an annoyance. And they're patient enough to wait millennia to crush you at leisure. Then there's the Tyranids. You've heard the horror stories. Entire sept worlds devoured, oceans drained, skies blotted out by wings. The Tyranids don't negotiate. They don't hate you. They don't even know you exist as individuals. Your biomass, raw fuel for the hive mind's endless hunger. Tau railguns can blow apart a carnifex. Plasma volleys can scythe through hormigorns by the dozen. But there are always more. The swarm never ends. Fighting Tyranids is fighting the very concept of consumption given flesh. They evolve between battles, adapting to your weapons. Your tactics become obsolete overnight. And even if you win, you rarely escape unscathed. Your sept worlds might be tainted with spores, your ecosystems ruined, your skies filled with drifting clouds of toxic biomatter. And let's not forget chaos. The Tau don't have psychers. You're not connected to the warp like humans or Eldar. And for that, you should be grateful, because chaos is the galaxy's oldest sickness, a wound in reality itself, but ignorance doesn't protect you. The Tau have encountered chaos cults among human populations they've annexed, strange artifacts, warp storms, demonic incursions. Your people don't understand it. How could you? You lack the senses to even perceive the warp properly. And that's what makes chaos so terrifying for the Tau. You can't comprehend it. You can't see it coming. When daemons appear, your soldiers panic. Your Ethereals scramble to suppress rumors. Your entire society is built on logic and order, and chaos laughs at both. In the Damocles Gulf Crusade, Tau forces fought Chaos Marines alongside Imperial forces. Even the Imperium's zealous priests screamed in horror at what they faced. For the Tau, it was a glimpse into an abyss they'd never imagined. So, those are your enemies. The Imperium's holy wrath, the Orcs' endless violence, the Necrons' cold indifference, the Tyranids' devouring hunger, and the unfathomable horror of chaos. The greater good might keep you united, but it can't shield you from the galaxy's cruelty. And yet, in the face of all this, the Tau endure. Why? Because of leaders. Figures who rise above the rest, who become legends, who show your people that the greater good might yet survive in a universe designed to crush hope. Let's talk about some of those personalities. First, Commander Farsight, Chassezot Viola Chauva, Kais Montier, the Brightsword. Farsight is both hero and heretic in Tau history. A legendary battlesuit commander, brilliant tactician, revered for saving countless worlds from orc invasions and chaos incursions. He's also the Empire's greatest embarrassment, because Farsight left. During the wars following the Damocles Crusade, Farsight was sent to defend the Empire's eastern borders. His forces fought a brutal campaign against orcs and chaos, but when it was over, he didn't come home. Instead, he carved out a realm known as the Farsight Enclaves, independent, free from Ethereal rule. He rejected the Ethereal's leadership, and to this day, the Empire paints him as a tragic figure, an honorable warrior led astray. But the truth is murkier. Some whisper that Farsight discovered dark truths about the Ethereals, that he saw secrets the Empire cannot allow to become public. Others say he simply grew tired of sacrificing soldiers for politics. He still fights for the Tau people, but on his own terms. His warriors are fiercely loyal, his battlesuits bear the blood-red mark of the Enclaves. And though the Empire condemns him, there are many among the Fire Caste who secretly admire him. Then there's Commander Shadowsun, Chassezot Chasera, the supreme commander of the Tau military. Shadowsun is a master of Kauyon, the patient hunter. Cool, methodical, utterly precise. She's regarded as one of the greatest strategists in the Empire's history. During the Third Sphere of Expansion, Shadowsun led campaigns that crushed human resistance, outmaneuvered Imperial forces, and secured vast new territories. She's become the face of the modern Tau war machine. But even Shadowsun carries scars. She awoke from stasis into a galaxy far more dangerous than the one she left. Chaos, Necrons, Tyranids. And there are whispers that the Ethereals trust her so completely because they know she's loyal enough never to ask the wrong questions. Anva, the master of the undying spirit, the highest Ethereal of his generation. Anva shaped modern Tau society, leading the Empire through crises, expansions, and wars. His speech is a legend broadcast across sept worlds to inspire the masses. But Anva is also a figure of mystery. Some rumors suggest he's died multiple times, replaced by identical doubles to preserve the illusion of an immortal leader. Others whisper he never truly existed, that he's a collective persona created by the Ethereal caste to keep society united. Either way, Anva's name is still invoked in every oath and pledge. His words guide the greater good even now. Then there's Anshi. Unlike many Ethereals, Anshi is a warrior. He once led fire warriors personally into battle, armed with a bladed staff. His martial prowess earned him respect far beyond typical Ethereal circles. Captured during an Imperial assault, Anshi fought his way free, single-handedly killing dozens of enemy soldiers. To the Fire Caste, he's proof that even Ethereals can bleed and fight. He's become a living symbol that the Ethereals are not just distant rulers, but willing to sacrifice alongside their warriors. Of course, the Ethereal Council has quietly distanced itself from his example because a warrior Ethereal is an unpredictable precedent. Beyond these giants, there are countless other figures who've left their mark. Earth caste scientists who developed new battlesuits, water caste negotiators who secured alien alliances, air caste pilots who perished steering crippled ships away from civilian populations. These are the names whispered in barracks, etched onto memorial walls, recited in school assemblies. Heroes, traitors, visionaries, madmen, because in the Tau Empire, legends matter. They're the stories that keep you believing in the greater good, even when the stars grow cold and the enemy batters at your gates. And as you lie in your bunk, staring up at the ceiling's glow panels, you wonder if one day your name might join theirs. Will you be a hero of the greater good, or another footnote in a galaxy that swallows civilizations whole? So here you are, a Tau, blue-skinned, bright-eyed, raised from birth under the watchful gaze of the Ethereals, breathing filtered air in shining cities. You know your place, you know your duty. You've studied the history, recited the mantras, memorized the tenets of the greater good until they're etched into your bones. But what is it actually like to live day to day as a citizen of the Tau Empire? Let's peel back the bright white exterior and talk about the realities of daily life, the 1,000 small truths they don't show in recruitment hollows. Because while the galaxy is horrifying and the greater good provides order, sometimes being a Tau is, well, exhausting. Let's say you're a fire warrior. Your days start early. The barracks lights snap on at dawn, bathing your dormitory in cold white light. There's no sleeping in, no casual stroll to the mess hall in your pajamas. Instead, it's up and into formation, roll call, daily recitation of loyalty oaths. A quick inspection of your gear because your chasseur will skin you alive if your pulse rifle's barrel has a single smudge. Then the drills begin, endless drills. You'll practice formation movements, firing stances, target acquisition. You'll run obstacle courses in full gear. You'll spend hours in VR simulators, facing scenarios pulled from actual battle data. Or you'll be thrown into live fire exercises where drone guns spit searing blue plasma if you're too slow on your feet. The training is brutal because the stakes are lethal. You've seen combat footage of what happens to fire warriors caught flat-footed, Tyranids dismembering soldiers like ragdolls, orcs bashing skulls to pulp, chaos space, marines carving through squads like blades through silk. Your entire existence as a fire caste warrior is built around precision, discipline, and speed. And while the propaganda hollows show proud soldiers staring stoically into the distance, the truth is that every fire warrior carries a quiet terror, getting caught in close combat. Still, there are moments of pride, marching in perfect formation, the roar of your battlesuits thrusters as you drop into combat, the way civilians salute as you pass, their eyes wide with respect. But even those moments are tinged with something else. A subtle tension, a quiet pressure pressing on your chest. Because you're not just a soldier, you're a symbol, a tool of propaganda, the face of the greater good, and there's no escape, ever. Suppose instead you're Earthcast. Your days revolve around data screens, schematics, and the shrill alarms of experimental labs. You rise early, eat a meal perfectly calibrated for your nutritional needs, and report to your assigned sector. Maybe you're designing a new grav tank. Maybe you're troubleshooting power grid faults on a mining station orbiting a gas giant. Maybe you're toiling over theoretical physics equations that could change Tau warfare forever. It's fulfilling work if you're the sort of mind who loves precision and problem solving. But there's a shadow looming over every Earthcast innovation, the Ethereals. They want progress, but they also want control. Push your research too far, question too many assumptions, and you might find yourself transferred. The lab doors sealed, your name erased from records. Your family informed that you've gone to serve the greater good in new ways. It keeps most Theo cautious. You innovate, but not too boldly. You imagine, but not too freely. Then there's life as a watercast diplomat. Your days are endless negotiations, meetings stacked back to back, carefully scripted speeches delivered to alien dignitaries. You juggle gifts, threats, promises, and subtle manipulation, always measuring every word for how it might ripple through interstellar politics. You learn dozens of languages, study alien cultures, master the art of smiling while planning contingencies for betrayal. It's glamorous, in a way. The watercast travels more than anyone. They dine in starships, alien embassies, planetary capitals. They handle secrets that could topple entire sept worlds. One mistake, one insult, one cultural misunderstanding, and the entire diplomatic effort can collapse. The watercast lives in constant fear of failure, because failure doesn't mean a stern lecture. It means disappearing into the Ethereal Council's private chambers, never to emerge. Aircast life is different still. Most core live on ships, surrounded by hums of engines and blinking consoles. They drift between stars, living in low gravity, developing elongated limbs and fragile bones. You might command a Manta gunship roaring through planetary atmosphere, or pilot a massive warship, its gravitic shields shimmering as it absorbs enemy fire. Life in the void is isolating. Friendships fade across light years. Families grow distant. Some Aircast members become emotionally detached, finding solace only in the endless stars. And yet, without them, the Empire would collapse. It's the core who ferry troops, supplies, and information across the great gulf of space. They're the arteries through which the greater good flows. No matter your caste, life as a Tau shares certain universal truths. You're constantly reminded that you're part of something greater. Hollow projectors broadcast ethereal speeches in public squares. Propaganda art lines every corridor, depicting Tau soldiers helping alien children or heroic battlesuits defending cities. Your entertainment is approved content only. Plays, music, fiction, all must serve the greater good. Art exists, and it can be beautiful, but it's always laced with subtle messages about loyalty, unity, and sacrifice. There are leisure activities. Earth caste engineers tinker with models and puzzles. Fire warriors train in martial arts or compete in simulation tournaments. Water caste citizens practice music, languages, and debate. Air caste individuals sometimes simply stare at starfields, lost in private thoughts. But even recreation has a purpose. It must build discipline, foster cooperation, strengthen devotion to the cause. There's no religion in the traditional sense, no temples, no divine rituals. Instead, you recite pledges to the greater good. You attend public addresses from Ethereals, and you keep your doubts silent, because the worst crime in the Tau Empire isn't violence, it's dissent. If you start questioning the Ethereal's wisdom, you'll find polite invitations to private conversations. If you persist, your friends might begin avoiding you. Then you'll be reassigned, moved to a remote station, your family instructed not to speak of you. And one day, you simply won't come home. So why stay? Why endure the rigid structure, the surveillance, the absolute obedience? Because despite everything, life under the greater good is still better than life under most other regimes. You have food, shelter, purpose. You're not starving in hive slums. You're not being burned alive for minor heresies. You're not feeding daemons your soul. And for many Tau, that's enough. But the galaxy keeps changing. So what about the future? The Tau stand on a knife edge between glorious expansion and catastrophic annihilation. Your people are bold, clever, and determined. But the galaxy doesn't care. The Imperium grows more suspicious and aggressive with every new Tau sept. Every time a human world joins the Empire, the Imperium responds with fury. Crusades are declared. Exterminatus orders are signed. And no matter how much your water caste negotiates, some enemies simply want you dead. Chaos remains a lurking terror. The Tau don't truly understand the warp. Your society has no psychic defense. The day might come when entire septs fall to daemonic incursions. Your Ethereals do everything possible to keep chaos hidden from the masses, but secrets never stay buried forever. Then there's the Farsight enclaves. Commander Farsight's independent empire remains a festering wound in the Tau psyche. He stands as living proof that loyalty to the Ethereals isn't absolute. His existence inspires both admiration and fear. Will his ideology spread? Could other septs break away? The Ethereals work tirelessly to prevent such thoughts, but the seeds of rebellion are impossible to eradicate completely. There's also the question of technological progress. The Earth caste continues to push boundaries, new battlesuits, new weapons, experimental AI protocols, but every innovation risks challenging the existing social order. The Ethereals want progress, but only on their terms. Too much advancement, too fast, could unravel the caste system itself. And beyond it all looms the endless darkness of space. Necron tomb worlds awakening, Tyrannid tendrils probing deeper into the eastern fringe, Orc WAAAG age gathering under monstrous warlords, Eldar craft worlds steering ancient paths that could intersect disastrously with Tau expansion. The Tau are young, brave, idealistic, but the galaxy is very, very old, and it has crushed countless civilizations before yours. Still, there's hope, because the Tau refuse to bow to despair. You've carved out a place in the stars through sheer determination. You've survived the Damocles Crusade, Tyrannid invasions, internal schisms, and the greater good, however flawed, gives your people something powerful, purpose. So as you gaze out a viewport at stars blazing coldly in the void, you wonder, will the Tau stand triumphant 1,000 years from now, having built an empire of unity and progress? Or will your worlds lie in ashes, your cities swallowed by warp storms, your name forgotten in cosmic dust? Either way, you'll be there. Hoofed feet planted firmly, pulse rifle charged, or stylus poised over a data slate, or steering a starship through silent gulfs, because you're a Tau, and your life belongs to the greater good. So yeah, waking up as a Tau? It's not all gleaming battlesuits and righteous speeches. It's sacrifice, duty, fear, and hope. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, the galaxy doesn't care who you are. But the greater good, it cares enough to keep fighting anyway. And for now, that's enough. So sleep well tonight, citizen. Dream of shining sept worlds and bright stars. And remember, you serve the greater good. Or else.